We do like to start, even on Mondays, even when it's a holiday, we like to start off the show with our little warm up, what we call our jargon of the day. When we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, we try to first give you the actual definition. Often we will make fun of the actual definition because it's useless, because it's written by people who, have so many letters after their name and are not concerned about you and I understanding what they're talking about. So it's not that the definition is silly, it's that it cannot be understood because it has so much more jargon in it. So we'll make fun of that. And then when we can, and then we give you a working definition to try to give us a place where we can begin to understand. Now, it's 2022. We've been doing the show for over 10 years. We regularly cycle back through jargon terms, but every once in a while, there's a real big push for us to do new jargon terms. And we uncovered a bunch of terms that we use on the show from time to time that we just had never taken the time to do jargon of the day with. So today is one of those terms. Easily confusing, but let's see if we can shed a little light on it. So today's jargon term is hypersensitivity. And I pronounced that the way I did because later in the week we'll talk about hyposensitivity, and they are vastly different, antithetical maybe even. So hypersensitivity. So let's take a look at what, first of all, I think we've heard this, we've heard of hypersensitivity. And we probably come to this with a preconception of what it might be. Let's check and see if our preconception is correct. So let's take a look at our actual definition first. Hypersensitivity is excessive, often painful reaction to everyday auditory, visual, or tactile stimuli, such as bright lights or loud noises. And I'm not going to make fun of this definition because I like several things about it. I understand that it is a gray, squishy term to say excessive, because what's excessive to me may not be excessive to you, right? But it says that this can't be something that's slight, right? And in fact, it clarifies that this has the potential to be a painful reaction to an everyday stimulus. So I really don't think that anybody could read that and poo-poo it. Right. And that's what I liked most about this definition, because when you are hypersensitive to something, it is not something that people should just be telling you to get over. I think that's what I really liked about this. So with that understanding that this is, the professional definition of what it is, let's take a look at our working definition of it and see if we can begin to really delve in and have an appreciation for this. Becoming overwhelmed by sensory input that is perceived by others as tolerable. Now, this is where we get into what is tolerable to you and what is tolerable to another person. But I think that we can all understand that in most buildings nowadays, there is some level of fluorescent lighting or LED lighting, right? And what we've come to understand is that some people are very hypersensitive to the vibration of that type of light, that it is so disabling to them that it makes them dizzy, or it makes them not be able to focus, or put a thought together and be vocal or verbal. Now, there is the potential, if we just said, well, we're just going to leave that alone and we're just going to continue putting up fluorescent lights and those people can just get over it. I mean, first of all, that would be very inhumane, right? But there would be very much the potential for someone to not be successful in a classroom if that was the constraint, that, well, we're just going to do that because 10 of the people in the classroom aren't bothered by it and only one is, so we're just going to leave it alone, and that person just has to suck it up, right? But I think we are moving towards, and I certainly want to live in a world that is more empathetic, that looks at individuals and says, we don't all process sensory things in the same way and with the same dial. I love, what is the documentary? I'm losing my mind right now. Spinal Tap. the documentary where they talk about turning up the volume and what do you set the amp volume at? And he says, I put it at 11. It goes from 1 to 10, but he says he wants to put it at 11. It's a phrase that we use a lot in our house because I certainly am hypersensitive to some stimuli because I think everybody's hypersensitive to something, um, to the point where it's uncomfortable. The thing about it is though, we see some people who have categories of things that they'll be hypersensitive to, and that it isn't just a little painful, it's a lot painful. I think about someone like Dr. Stephen Shore, who's a brilliant mind, and a brilliant educator and has been teaching at Adelphi University for decades. And he is someone who wears a baseball hat when he teaches as a professor. And however many years ago that he began teaching, he had to say to them, it was not appropriate then for a professor to wear a baseball hat, right? There are still some people now who probably go, well, that's disrespectful. But wearing that baseball hat is what allows Dr. Shore to go into his classroom and teach without having to modify the environment. It is his personal modifier that he puts out, and because it has a bill, it closes out just enough stimuli that he can go about doing what he does, which I think many people would argue is genius. So if we don't make accommodations for people and their sensitivities to stimuli, what are we saying no to? Who are we saying no to? And how much progress are we saying no to? Imagine, I'm sure that all of you have some accommodation that you do for yourself before you have to do something that's difficult. I know people who are not on the spectrum who can't go to a concert, or put earplugs in their ears when they go to a really loud concert at a venue because it's just too loud for them. I know I've left venues because it was too loud for me. But I know people who will put in those orange earplugs and go. Is that any different than someone who wears the noise canceling headphones on a subway because it's loud? I think we're moving towards a kinder, gentler phase of our humanity where we are going to stop judging people because they are open and honest and accommodating of themselves when it comes to these kinds of issues. So, why do we bring this up? I think it's important for us to normalize that it is a part of life, that people will have hypersensitivity to things, and that we begin looking when we see a behavior. Let's say that we see a behavior in a 3-year-old who doesn't yet have the language to say, that noise, I can't handle it, right? That we begin to have the awareness of, if someone is having a reaction, is it possible that there are other things going on? And I think that we find with autism, often there are other things going on, and we can take a compassionate, empathetic point of view, that we not persist in expecting people to get over it, or that we don't label it and go, well, that's them being disrespectful. No, no. We have to be compassionate and allow for accommodations to accommodate these kinds of things. Now, are there therapies that work on hypersensitivity? Yes. One of the things that we talk about a lot on the show is systematic desensitization, but the key to systematic desensitization is going so slowly that it doesn't overwhelm the person or upset them. And if in fact it gets to the point where it is disturbing, that we go back to the last place that worked. If we do the opposite of that, it's something called flooding, and that's literally when you throw somebody in the deep end of the pool to see if they'll swim. It is unkind. It is not something you should ever do with a child who is on the autism spectrum. And you should only do it with an adult who is consented and understands what's happening, and there are professionals there in the space to deal with the emotions that come up with it. I say that all the time on the show, but I'm going to keep saying it until I turn blue and keel over. Because I think that there are some people who don't understand how unkind and how traumatizing it could be to a child to, and it happens all the time, sometimes unintentionally, where a child will be flooded with something that is really sensitive for them. And then the journey back from that, because now there's the potential for PTSD, the journey back to being in a place where they can be calm and go through that is so much harder. Flooding is not a thing to do with any child, let alone a child who has a documented disability. So there we go. Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.